Welcome to Productive Joy with Dr. Christie, where fun meets action.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy. You are going to have a great time today because our guest today, look, that was a play on words. On my part, this is Karen Agrait, and she is going to be a fabulous guest today who is lots of things. She's a survivor. She is a coach. She is a learner, and she helps others learn. She's a personality expert. She's an empty nester, but in stages. And I fully and completely understand that as a mother of 24-year-old sets. I have a set of twins and then another one. She's a mom. She is a traveler. She does not sit still well, which I appreciate as well. Paris is her favorite place to travel, but at heart, she's a beach girl. And she's our guest today. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you, Dr. Christie. That was awesome. It sounded so fun.
You are fun. And I love to do it that way because I feel like our introductions are almost painful to listen to. Even though we have all these accolades and all these things that we can say, people just want to know who you are as a human. So tell us a little bit, Karen, about who you are as a human. Let's start there. Tell us about you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, well, hi, everyone. I hope everybody's finding some productive joy today. You know, as a human, I would say that I'm compassionate, probably first and foremost. I have always had just this need to create joy and fun where I go because I like to have fun. I don't like to be overly serious, yet sometimes I get like stuck in the muck of all that seriousness. But I really love to explore, and I'm wildly curious about things. And I've just always really enjoyed learning, not only for myself, but others. And when I realized it was an intersection of being curious and learning and actually getting paid for it, I jumped at the opportunity to become a trainer and then later a coach. Yes.
Well, a little bit.
I mean, yeah.
No, go ahead. I like the way you said that. That just made my heart happy.
I'm a mom first and foremost. One of those things like, who are you? I mean, grew up in a very loving family. Children were always kind of the heartbeat. My mom actually ran an in-home daycare.
Oh, wow.
And so, I believe I got a lot of my characteristics from her because she was just always the hostess with the mostest. And she was coordinating activities and, making sure that everybody's got what they need. Right. So, I just love being able to not only enjoy life, but enjoy life with others and cultivate experiences that work.
Well, I mean, that sounds like the kind of person I would want as a friend, right? The kind of person that takes care of others and wants the best for them. And you kind of turned that into a career, which is pretty awesome. So how did all of that upbringing and taking care of people translate into what you're doing now?
Yeah. I was 10 years old. I remember it vividly. I was watching the news. Well, the news was on. I wasn't a 10-year-old watching the news. The news was on. I think my mom was cooking. My dad was around. And I just caught my eye was this abuse report about these children. And I just looked at my parents and I was like, what is that? Like, I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, why is like dad getting arrested? I was so confused. And of course, they explained the best they could to a 10-year-old. And since that point, I just said, that's not okay. So I got into child welfare right away. Right when I got my bachelor's degree in psychology, I realized, again, there was a job for that. And so bright-eyed, bushy-tailed 21-year-old college graduate thinking I'm going to save the world. I went into child welfare and did that for a year where I was actually going into the homes, working alongside investigators and police and all the things. And boy, did that make me grow up fast.
Right. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine the horrors that you would see. I have a couple friends that are in that space and it's just, if not for the thing.
Yeah. And then again, just through that process, then I realized, okay, I can't do this all the time. I can't, it's a very high burnout job. So I transitioned. I was actually in a specialty unit, which was just, again, amazing. Learned forensic interviewing, was really able to specialize on cases. And then from there, I was able to actually learn, there's, the training programs, of course, you have to go through at the time. And this was in the late 90s to date myself.
We don't have to say it.
We don't need to talk about that.
It's fine.
So I was like, I can do that. That would be great to do. And so again, that was another pivotal milestone in my career that, okay, I can actually be a teacher, but not a kindergarten and fourth grade teacher, which I also was for a stint. Most people see, they like that tracks.
Yeah, that works. Our daughter is a kindergarten teacher, and there is that is a special breed of human.
Yeah, so I did that for a bit, and then we lost our contract. Of course, it's very much run by the state of Florida and the community agencies. And instead of applying for a whole lot more, I had gotten my master's. I was in process of getting my master's in instructional design because I had such an affinity for talent development and learning and development that I went in the for-profit sector. And of course, I live in Orlando, so you can't not work in hospitality in some fashion.
That is absolutely mandatory. Right. You're right.
Yeah. So I led trainings there, and then went into behavioral health, and then of course just very industry agnostic from there. And then more recently, I still train, of course. I do a lot of workshops, do a lot of assessments, diagnostics, personality assessments, job fit, all those types of things, Clifton Strengths. And then I just really found coaching to be such a secondary calling for me. And maybe that's what it was always about, is getting to this point where I'm a coach. So I went back and got my accreditation and credentialing to officially do that, because I think a lot of us unofficially do it and probably do it fairly well. But there definitely is a framework, right? And some more ethics and guidelines to follow.
Yeah. Well, it sounds to me like you honestly have kept your calling all the way through, and that's to help people. And now you're just helping people in a different format than maybe you originally thought you would. But I appreciated the phrase industry agnostic, because when you're taking care of the humans, that is not industry specific. It shouldn't be, right? Sometimes we can become industry specific because we have connections or whatever, but what you're doing is really something that crosses any and all industries, because it's just about the people, which is pretty beautiful. I am a big fan of the Clifton Strengths Finder, and that's where I discovered that I'm woo, which I didn't love it first until I found out it meant winning others over. I was like, I don't want to be woo, but I'm very woo. Yeah, that makes sense. So what is it about our personalities that allows us to be the best at our jobs, right? Like, so I don't know that people always get hired for the right reasons, but you said you worked in job fit and all that good stuff. How do those two things work together?
Yeah, I love that. You've probably heard people talk about it, especially in human resources, right? Like, you can hire for personality, not necessarily the skills. The skills can be taught.
Yeah.
And it is quite funny, depending, the Hogan assessment, all the different assessments, Clifton Strengths, right? Like, how does personality DISC is a really popular one as well. How does that flow into it? And I believe there's more of a natural affinity for certain roles, kind of like your daughter, right, being a kindergarten teacher. Right? There's just certain characteristics that draw people in. So if you're highly motivated by people and enjoy, and you're extroverted in your thinking, and you get a lot of thought and energy from that, then likely there's certain roles such as facilitator, trainer, teacher, right, police officer, those types of things where you're mixing and mingling with people a lot. And you want to make sure that that's clear. Whereas other personalities, it's more so about, okay, I am really regimented. I really like to have a schedule. I like supporting others, but I'm very focused on the task as well. And I need to make sure that it's very methodical. So people gravitate to those different roles, I would say, quite a bit. So when you're looking to hire, there's a lot of different tools that you can utilize, but where personality shows up often is, again, what are some of the characteristics and the skills that have been most advantageous for this job? You mentioned Clifton Strengths, right? So you're high woo. So it makes sense that you're running this podcast, right? If you were not high woo and communication maybe wasn't high, I'm taking a guess here, it's probably in the top 10.
Let me see. That was number one. Communication was number one. Woo was, I think, 4. I don't think it was.
Yeah, but that's fair. And so I do a lot of work with organizations, the teams, individuals, when we kind of look at, what's the telltale sign that you're in the right job, right? Yeah. Are you exhausted before lunchtime? Could be a good warning sign that these things that you could be very skilled at, very good at, but they're just very depleting. Yeah. Not necessarily a top strength of yours. So really, again, Don Clifton, who pioneered this and did the research 5 decades ago, really said, what if people just really focused on what they're great at? instead of always, again, we've all had those performance reviews where they spend 15 minutes talking about your praises and how wonderful you are. And then the next 45 minutes, but boy, I really need you to ring it in. Like, like someone talking to me about putting together Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah.
You're going to have that conversation with me every day. I'm not going to do well at it. I will finally get it, and it will take me probably double to triple as long as someone else.
Yeah. So why would you waste that time?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Well, I talk a lot on here because of my friend Amy Kemp about your unique genius. And once you've discovered your unique genius, then you're able to operate in it. But when we're not in our unique genius, it's like wearing a mask, right? Like it becomes suffocating eventually because you are preventing yourself from taking a deep breath. And I know many people who are in jobs right now who are struggling to take a deep breath. And it's because they aren't able to exercise those talents and they're not able to share those talents. So I know that you had a moment where your world kind of shifted and you recognized that you needed to be operating in your unique talents or your unique genius because your life said, hold on. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think there are probably people listening who are like, yeah, I'm right here. I'm right here. I don't even know how close I am to where you landed, but I'm having a moment.
Yeah. And isn't that the truth? Why is it the big events sometimes that jar us back into reality? And I hear it and see it every day in my coaching conversations with people. I would say the first jarring event was in 2020 when I lost my job, like so many of your listeners and just the world at large. And most of that was very largely based on my identity, as we've kind of talked about with our personality and my calling, right? Purpose. So that was a big struggle and learning how to pivot and adapt and adjust there. What I think you're referring to, though, more so is in 2023, December. And I actually was getting ready to go and volunteer for an organization that's near and dear to my heart. And I passed out. When my heart started racing, I passed out. I was in my kitchen. And I was just like, woke up on my kitchen floor and I'm like, what just happened? I was so confused. I was alone at the time. And because we do what we do, I woke up, I felt fine. I was like, that's really odd. I'll call the doctor later. I had to co-present and we were doing a volunteer event. So that's what I did. I drove in my car very dangerously. I got to the event, was talking to the person I was, co-hosting the event with. And same thing, heart started racing as I told her. Next thing I know, I'm waking up. And thankfully that time someone caught me.
I was going to say, hi, yeah, you were with people that time.
We went to the hospital that time. So really long story short, this happened 4 times later after being checked into the hospital. They couldn't diagnose what had happened. And then essentially, thank goodness for modern medicine and a heart monitor, my electrical systems failed. And so I now am a recipient of a pacemaker, and I'm very grateful for that.
Wow.
But what that really did and pivoted for me was that hear this cliche, right? People have had near-death experiences. People have done different things where they said, okay, life is short, we got to move forward. But in this particular situation, I had to pivot. I had no other choice but to, find my way professionally, find my way medically, going through my health journeys, trying to understand what caused this, really grappling and understanding the fact that sometimes we just don't know why things happen the way they do. And all we do have control over is ourselves and the way that we pick ourselves back up and move forward. And ever since that time, I've really been very, very intentional on my workload, my personal life, right? Who I entertain, who I don't, who's in my circle is really important. And that's really how I mean productive joy, right? Is that intersection between doing what you love and really making a living out of it. And then just enjoying and traveling life and doing all the things that mean the world to you, spending time with friends and family.
I love that. Okay. And I didn't even have to ask you my favorite question because you just answered it. So when love meets living, when the thing you enjoy the most is what you are doing with the bulk of your time. And sometimes it does take a health scare. Sometimes it takes like that jarring moment where you're like, well, I can't do anything. Like this is the reality that I have to face. We kind of had that with our son this year. He's 24, always been healthy, everything's fine. And he all of a sudden was having some symptoms. And when they did blood work, discovered that his blood sugar level was 384
Mm.
and it should have been under 99. And it's one of those moments where you go, but he looks healthy, right? Like what's happening. And I think that equates to your story in we don't know what's going on underneath, but we need to be paying attention. We need to be listening. And then those moments lead us to productive joy, where we get to choose that we're going to do the things that bring us that joy. And so my follow-up question to you is, how do you help people create it? How do you help organizations and or individuals create more productive joy?
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think that the more important question is, how does each individual and ecosystem create it, right? That's company culture. That's why you can go into any given organization and have a different look or feel of it. Because productive joy looks very different from person to person and organization to organization. So it really starts with, to me, again, depending on who you are, your personality is really starting with some sort of a baseline diagnostic, right? And that's why I am such a proponent of these types of personality assessments or work inventories. Again, there's an assessment for everything, right? Self-awareness, 360 reports, things of that nature. So first you have to start with, what is the problem? And oftentimes people in organizations don't even know what the problem is. They see the outcome and they're like, yeah, I don't like that. And so we almost have to kind of work backwards. Like, okay, here's what you don't want. Tell me what you do want. Yeah. And then let's backtrack those steps and see how we can get there. And some of it's trial and error, and others is, okay, here's an intentional plan. But at the end of the day, how we create productive joy together is exactly that. Is uncovering what are the limited beliefs, right? What are the foundations of, when you think about Clifton's strengths, right? People who have high beliefs, those are typically very fixed. And so those attitudes, actions, behaviors are the results that you get. And so it's really understanding the diagnostics, the baseline, understanding where you want to end, right? Like, or, what is utopia for you personally and professionally? And then we do all the mechanisms. So I basically am an accountability partner. I'm a cheerleader, right? I'm a truth teller. I'm someone who's actively listening and getting the information to people to make their decisions.
I love everything you just said for so many different reasons. So I've been doing this podcast now for almost 2 years, and I'm well over 200 episodes. And I always ask the question, what's your definition of productive joy? And I always get a different answer. And that's why I ask, because I need, first of all, for the listeners to understand that you get to define it. It's your pursuit. But we frequently say, well, I just want to be successful. Okay, but what does that look like? Because successful for one might be that I'm going to make $1 million a year, and successful for somebody else might be I get to be home in the evenings with my kids. And those wouldn't necessarily find productive joy to be the same. So I am so grateful for people like you who are able to walk through the process with people and get them to the point where they can define it for themselves. And by it, I mean that productive joy, that thing that you're going to seek and then what makes me that way and how can I find some of that joy. So you're talking to leaders who are hoping to create a little more productive joy in their space. What advice would you have for them as they're trying to navigate team dynamics and, maybe a culture that isn't exactly where they want it to be? What would be step one?
Oh, well, number one is take a look in the mirror. And it is a really tough thing to do sometimes. I mean, as a parent, right, you can relate, probably a lot of your listeners can relate to being a parent. When your child starts giving you attitude or doing some behaviors that you don't necessarily like, and someone says, well, isn't that the pot calling the candles black? You're like, there's So self-awareness is really huge. So I always say it starts with you. And so it's really amazing. I have a wonderful healthcare organization that I currently work with, have over the last couple of years. And what I especially love about this group of executives is they walk the talk, right? They're the ones that says, I'll do it first. Yeah. So really being able to talk with leadership, getting them to experience the services, assessments, coaching, offsites, workshops, you name it, whatever their teams are prepared to do, giving that framework so that they can honestly have this similar experience to be able to role model, hey, I think this is important and we're doing this from the top down.
I love just the idea that one, people are pouring into their people. That
Mhm.
makes me happy. But then two, that you're giving them some very practical ways to do that so that they can just focus on the humans and not focus on the process, because it's really, in this case, about the journey and not
That's right.
necessarily a single destination, because everybody's on a slightly different journey.
Yeah.
People are going to want to be able to find you, Karen. How would people find you if they wanted to have a little more a greatness? Yeah, words. If you haven't seen it, her last name is a great.
Yeah, exactly. And my company is a great learning.
That is so fun.
Very, very intentional. So I have a boutique company. And, this is the thing too. I think patience is the second part of kind of adapting. I'm the type of person that wants all the things at once. And I don't know if I'm in the minority there.
Oh,
A
no.
lot of people do. So, like, I just have to embrace where I'm at. I mean, I'm still old school. I don't even have a website, right? I live on LinkedIn. So Karen Agrait, right? agreatlearning.com, it will eventually be my website. For now, again, reaching out like through my phone number, right? 407-538-2993 on LinkedIn is where I spend a lot of my time. Email a great learning leader at gmail.com. Just, very basic. I get a lot of my work through word of mouth and experiences. Yeah.
Well, and I can see that. And you very clearly have this wonderful demeanor of just, I'm here to help. And
Yeah.
it was your mom and her in-home daycare that showed you.
Yeah.
Just taking care of the humans is step one, right? Like, she was taking care of humans who couldn't take care of themselves. But I would argue that we are too in the adult space, because we don't know how to take care of ourselves. As a matter of fact, we very seldom take care of ourselves. We are too busy taking care of everybody else. So are you willing to answer some rapid fire questions for me?
Of course.
This is the part that makes me happy, because I just enjoy listening for consistencies and inconsistencies, because these are fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of, what is your definition of fun?
Just where I just get giddy about things. Just to be able to experience fun and laughter and a unique experience, right?
It's perfect. How do you know that you are showing up as your authentic self?
Oof. Because my heartbeat tells me so. Anxiety, overthinking, that is not my right fit. Where I just naturally go and synergize, that is where I need to be.
I love it. How do you channel your best self on your worst days?
Oof, isn't that so good? A lot of great techniques and tools that I've learned from various methods. A lot is the deep breathing, the box method, right? When I do notice my anxiety is high, I have grounding practices that I do every morning. I take my cup of coffee before I have any appointments. I'm out on my patio, rain or shine. I'm listening to the birds. I'm drinking my coffee. I'm not on any kind of technology. I set my intention for the day. And I also am an avid Pilates fan. So I try at least 3 to 4 times a week to get out there.
I've been having a lot of conversations about Pilates lately. I think it's something that I need to try. I've been an avid burn boot camp participant for over 5, almost 6 years. And I love it. And yet there's something about Pilates that piques my interest. So maybe
it's
been here to tell me to try it today.
It makes you breathe, right? It actually tells you to stop and breathe. So that's probably why I like it.
Well,
and also just know when to go back to bed and just put the covers over your head, right?
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Last question, tough question.
Okay.
You said a lot of great things, and people needed everything that you said, but by nature, our brains only hold on to one. So what's the one thing that you really want to leave people with today?
That you are your most important project you'll ever work on.
So well said, and so not well executed.
But correct.
So yeah, I want to say a huge thank you, Karen. This was a ray of sunshine and such a delightful conversation, and I know the listeners are going to appreciate it. So thank you for choosing Productive Joy today.
Oh, I appreciate you so much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And listeners, as always, I'm going to ask you to take a few nuggets of wisdom away. I know I took lots. When you're in your strengths, it's not exhausting. You've got limited beliefs that are preventing you from finding your productive joy. So figure out what those are. Be sure you look in the mirror first, because it starts with you. Figure out what your baseline diagnostic is and then go from there. and let your heartbeat tell you what you're supposed to be doing. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for being a consistent listener. Thank you for sharing this with your friends and putting a little more productive joy out into the world, because I think we all deserve it. So today and every day, my challenge for you is to figure out a way to turn fun into action.